Presiding Officer, Assemblymen, councillors from both the Executive Council and the Minority Council, I would say public officers who have worked hard and long in this debate and estimates, and also to the group of persons who now make up the viewing public, whether it be through YouTube, on the radio, and in the public gallery. It is with a type of joy I come to this house today to rebut what I will call a very sickening and painful vision of 2018 based on the draft estimates of expenditure and revenue that my dear friend, member for Bacolet, Mount St. George, would have offered to us last week, Thursday. I would say to him here and now that a committee should be formed to go through those draft estimates. A lot of questions arise from what you presented. It would be referred as to me as the huff and puff and fluff budget. A lot of hot air, little substance. Reminds me of the styrofoam debate they once brought in here. 95% hot air, 5% substance. That too need to be banned from this honorable house. Madam Deputy Presiding Officer, Madam Presiding Officer, I recognize there's violence in the chambers today, and I want to ask you to please restrain the member from Bacolet Wim, Spring Garden, from physically attacking in my presence as a witness the member from Bacolet. But that's what happened when you hire an old school teacher. He sees you all as students and he flog you all at any point in time. That's what happened.
Mr. Duke, can you get back to the
It's part of my debate.
Debate, please.
It's part of my debate. I was looking for a budget, Madam Presiding Officer. A budget that was well thought out. A budget that had a strategic plan that would take us from where we are to the period 2030. Yes. We were hoping that the pre-budget survey and consultation would have included ordinary folks from the street, from the market, from the quarry, housewives, taxi drivers, even those persons who drive the white bread van or the panel vans trying to make $1. But no, no. Their pre-budget survey was done among a few, a special interest group who think to themselves they have the answers, and they are the panacea to all the problems in Tobago. I dare go on to say that my friend, the member for Bacolet, the Secretary of Finance, he was so bold in his position that he pointed all of us, saying to us that their draft estimates came from the PNM Manifesto 2017. Bold enough to say that. Then he went on to speak about a defunct, non-existent, comprehensive economic development plan for Tobago 2.0. And as if he was speaking by the side of his mouth, he whispered from a survey, pre-budget survey. He failed to present us clear strategic objectives that will take us from where we are to where we need to be. Not only did he carry the budget with such looseness that you could hardly gather anything from him, he also misrepresented facts. Important facts, Madam Presiding Officer, that would give this nation the impression that Tobago is doing well. While the rest of the world or the Caribbean is stumbling, Tobago has a GDP that has been growing from since 2011 at 3% per year to 2016. I will debunk that. As a matter of fact, I will take my time in debunking that because I want you all to understand something. The facts is out there. It's no secret. These are not the dark ages. Am I hearing someone disturbing me, ma'am? Could you please advise the members on that side that when I'm speaking, they ought to keep quiet in accordance with the standing orders? Do I need to point it out to someone here? Why don't they take a page from the Minority Council? We were deathly silent last week while you all spoke. No one murmured. All of a sudden, you don't want no one to hear what you all have done. Let me tell you what the Secretary for Finance did. Last week, and I want to get it from his book. And I must say, you all have these crafty ways of coming up with these titles. Unleashing the creative and productive capacity of our people. Songs like Unleashing the Dragon, like a movie. I don't know why you want to all get real and get serious. In this modern day and age, unleashing. Is it dammed up somewhere? Where is it? Have you spent time schooling our people and developing their mental faculties and their skills and the resources of this island so at this point in time you could unleash it? What is there to unleash? But let me go to the point where I want to speak to you about when you made some rather statements. I tried to read this book again last night before I sleep, and I got nightmares. I must admit that. One of the first things I want to debunk is the fact that you are saying 85% of the daily pays, and I must acknowledge the workers here from the Study Park Quarry. You are very much interested in budget debates, I must say, and what goes on with the quarry and the rest of this country. So I want to acknowledge them there and the other people who are there. He said 85% on page 8 of his so-called draft estimates. 85% of all daily rated employees have migrated to the automated clearinghouse system, resulting in timely payments. This ACH system, as they call it, is not a new system. And I recall in January, people from the quarry, people from URP, people from all over Tobago, as late as last month, people were quarreling about not receiving their pay. And I will want the Honorable Secretary, the member for Blackrock, Wim Spring Garden, Chief Secretary, when he stands after my 2 hours. I'm going to spin it for 2 hours. You mull on something. That he must give an answer to this. Why is it that persons were receiving late salaries? Why is it? Why? Answer the question, why? Is it because of this ACH system? I know that checkers are very sharp and diligent with their duties. I used to be a checker. In the year 1994, I was a checker. And I understood then that when you do a sheet, there was no mistakes to be made on it. And those sheets have a date to prepare and a date to conclude. I knew that. It was very diligent. Persons used to be paid on time. How come all of a sudden that with the advent of, with your discovery rather, of ACH, there's money in the bank all of a sudden? If you have no money, there is nothing to pay. And as long as you keep getting money from Trinidad, month to month, you can't pay your debts. But I understand why Trinidad give you all month to month salary. I understand that. Bad management. Madam Presiding Officer, I say to you, do not use the ACH system as if it was some magic bullet. And once it fires off, everyone gets paid. If there is no money in the bank, the ACH doesn't work. That's it. That is it. Instead of spending time telling us how they are going to supplement the meager revenues that comes from Trinidad by way of transfers, they spend time telling us about technology, ACH, trying to blind us, thinking that people will say, all right, ACH, we're getting paid now. ACH does not translate into pay. It requires money. He didn't stop there. He made a boast on Thursday, saying on page 9, saying although development can be measured in various ways by any yardstick, any fair-minded person looking at Tobago over the last 16 years or so will undoubtedly conclude that the island has done exceedingly well. He said that, and I felt sick when he said that. Because if well means there's no boat from Trinidad and Tobago, reliable transportation, then I must be unwell. If well means that you cannot book a ticket today for today, you have to book for quite next week if you want to travel today and hope to get on standby, then I must be unwell. I definitely do not understand. Why is it that a quarry that is a gold mine is being given to private hands? I'll come to that in a while again. He said anybody, any fair-minded person will say that when speaking about development. But I want to tell him that knowledge is out there. And when you speak about development of any nation, you speak about three things, which you try to speak about, make mention of after. The three things you speak about, Madam Presiding Officer, is the economic development of our country. If we're talking about development of Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm going to take my time, no big words I'm going to use, keep it simple, I have 2 hours to use. When we speak about the development of our country, we speak primarily about three things. One, economic development. Can the country sustain itself? Can Tobago sustain itself if there is development? It's the first yardstick. And there's a big word to use for that called GDP. Gross domestic, what? Product. What can it mean? Gross domestic product. What it simply means, I'm not talking about per capita. We're talking about gross domestic product based on current market prices. And this may be a highfalutin language, so I'll break it down for you. What it means, if you were to sell all the goods and services in Tobago for a particular year, the amount of money you receive after doing that would be the gross domestic product based on current market prices. So in other words, when they look at it for 2011, my good friend there, the Secretary of Finance, quoted a figure. He said in 2011, the gross domestic product based on market prices was valued at $1.66 billion, which means all our goods, all our services, when we sell them, would amount to that. Well, those figures were not quoted from any source, and I believe they came from the top of his head or from a little sidebar meeting somewhere in Pigeon Point. You know where they hang out? Down there. Somewhere down there they were hanging out, and maybe the figure came up, and it sounds good. And he went on to tell a massive untruth, stating that from 2011 to 2016, where the gross domestic product based on current market prices was $1.86 billion, there was actually a growth in Tobago's economic, or GDP, or economic position. And he was saying that our position grew by almost 3% every single year. Now that sounds fantastic. Huh? That sounds very fantastic. Imagine that. No boat. Diane Haddad, Chamber people saying economic crash. And they are saying our economy is growing. People can't get cement. Construction at an all-time low, save and except for what their friends are building. And they are saying the economy is growing. Shops are being closed all around the country. They are saying the economy is growing. I want to tell the Secretary for Finance, Madam Presiding Officer, that your figures for 2011 is wrong. All right? The GDP for 2011, and I'll quote for you, based on the central bank statistics. Hold on. Don't rush. I'll quote it for you. Based on the central bank statistics, based on the Central Statistics Office, that's right, the Central Statistics Office, National Economic Accounts Division, Gross Domestic Product of Tobago, 2010 and 2011. Have you ever read that book? Have you ever read that at all? Hear what it says here. When coming to gross domestic product for that year, and I want to find it right, 54. The gross domestic product for 2011 was $2.61 billion. A much larger figure than the one he put forward in the house here. Yes, get your notes. Get your notes. I quote it for you. Where it came from. I quote my source again. Central Statistics Office, National Economic Accounts Division, Gross Domestic Product for Tobago, 2010 and 2011. At market prices, current prices, millions of dollars. They put everything in millions of dollars. And the last thing on that page, my friend, is gross domestic product. All right? For 2010, it was $2.2 billion. And for 2011, the figures you are interested in, it was $2.61 billion. But you come to this house with a fictitious figure. The thing made me feel sick. 1.6 billion you give us. Why are you trying to cut the ability of Tobago to make money? Why are you trying to cut it? Why? To make yourself look good? To say to the nation that the economy grew between 2011 and 2016 at 3%? Well, anybody could do this maths. If in 2011, I'm going to send it to you. I'm going to WhatsApp it to you, my friend. Joel Jack, I have your phone number. I'm going to WhatsApp it to you when I take my seat. But hold on for a while. Pay attention. The teacher is in class. Madam Presiding Officer. Madam Presiding Officer. Let's do the maths together today. I'm in no rush. I must correct error when I see it. If in 2011, the GDP, according to current market prices, was at $2.61 billion, and in 2016, there's a decline of 1.86 billion. That it means to me, and anybody who could add and subtract, that the GDP fell at approximately 4.7% on a yearly basis. 4.7%. No, that they will get a chance. Hold on, we'll get a chance. Take it light. Teacher is teaching. When the teacher is teaching, pay attention. That's not good maths. It is here. The figures are here. I am holding on to his figure for 2016. The figure he gave for 2016 is 1.86. That is the amount of money Tobago would have actually made in goods and services, products, etc. 1.86 billion. He said that. So I'm holding on to that. But I'm querying 2011, based on Central Statistics Office. I have the data here. I have the data. Now I'm going to send it to you. Do it yourself. Take it light. All you must read before you write. And before you write, you must speak it into the ear to hear if it sounds good. Because sometimes it ends sounding good, and you know it ain't right. So from 2011, we have 2.61. I'm going slow, so my friends in the gallery can listen. $2.61 billion. To get to a decrease of 1.86 in 2016, every year, the economy would have contracted by 4.7%. Now that is in sync. That synchronizes like clockwork when we look at the productive sectors my friend love to speak about. They love to use all these big terms, productive sectors. What do they mean? I'll take my time, because I'm not acclimated as yet. I'll take my time with you. I'll take my time. I don't read like you. You spend whole 2 hours reading. I got sick. I'm not even drinking water. Madam Presiding Officer, I'm so glad you're in your house. When you're in your house, I feel protected. They spoke about the productive sectors. And I will say to you, the productive sectors in Tobago are basically 3 sectors. Hotels and guest houses, yes, agriculture, wholesale and retail stuff. Now, when you look at that period 2011 to 2016, you would observe the productive sector reflecting a similar decline in business. Let's take, for example, hotels and guest houses throughout that period, 2011 to 2016, declined by 5.4%. Yeah. The next area to decline was wholesale and retail. That declined by 5%. The other area was agriculture. Agriculture declined by 4.5%, 4.3%. Now, when you look at all of that and you put an average to it, it more or less looks like the decline we experience of 4.5% on an annual basis leading to 2016. Instead, they came in here and they peddled lies with a soft voice and an innocent face, as if they were taught by their former boss himself. They said the economy in Tobago is growing 3% on an annual basis. So much persons losing their work, so much business closing down, and the economy growing? No, it is not. Let me go further to say, I am shocked that my friend, member for Bacolod, Mount St. George, Secretary of Finance, did not take time out to speak about Tobago creating a second line of revenue that is different from the handout from Trinidad. Because with a budget of $4.9 billion, almost $5 billion, in an economy that is well constricted, where are we going with that? There's not even place to pass in this economy. But he's putting a budget of $5 billion. When I look at the revenue streams, he gave us a book on that. Draft estimates for revenue. How do you intend to get that $5 million? I'm looking for it. Your revenue streams. I'm looking at it here. And I'm saying at best, his revenue streams, when put together at best, amount to some $225 million at best. Where are we going with that? Where are we going with that? Where are we going with that? Is that how we're going to supplement this budget here? A budget is about expenditure. It brings me to a second point. A budget of $2.5 billion. All right? requires a certain type of revenue to be generated. If you're going to make a budget of $2.5 million, you need to have a certain level of revenue. The likes we have not seen. We need to have a type of revenue like $8.6 billion. We need to generate that if we're going to have a budget of 2.5. But no, that's not interesting to you. That's not important to you. All you know, you could make a phone call to Trinidad and you could get something down there. And I watched at my friend on Channel 5 this morning trying to answer the question. And he said that there are other sources of revenues that they're going to get. Then where is it? It's not here. Transfers? Not here. For 16 years, they wrote budget after budget after budget. For 16 years altogether, they had approximately $40 billion. And they never one day thought about sustainable economic development. They never thought about something that will continue long after the fire is out. They never thought about that. A very simple thing is planting trees. My mother, who is now deceased, one day came home with a set of trees from Louis Dore Nursery. And she began to plant them at the bottom of the hill, what we call the bottom. And I said, Mommy, where are you planting them trees for? She said, boy, we might think they're wrong, but I'll get them to eat. This is food. Plant it. For years before, while I was growing and living at home, there was nothing down there but a kenep tree and 2 mango trees, which were very tall then. But then she had a different plan. In her mind, the world will last more than today. And so she was thinking about tomorrow. And she planted shaddock, she planted mango, she planted a whole number of trees. Today, we have a whole orchard down there. Because she chose to invest in the future today. I'm saying if by 2030 we are to become self-sufficient, there are some investments we need to make today. One of them is the Studley Park Quarry. We need to invest in the Studley Park Quarry. I say we, meaning Tobago House of Assembly. The quarry is not a place to play with. It is not something to give away. It is not something to experiment with. The quarry is something to be under the direct charge of Tobago House of Assembly. One of the reasons China is so successful today is because they practice what is called a command economy. And I'll break it down for my colleagues in the audience and for those who are listening. A command economy comes from the word command, that they take charge of their economy. In China, they ensure that every single person gets employment. Something like the teacher is trying to do. But without the proper research, they're attempting to do that. In China, they take charge of every single productive area in the economy that can bring in revenue. Everything, they take charge of that. The government, they take charge of that. In some economies, there's a mixed economy where they practice both command and free economy. I heard the Secretary of Finance said that we are in a free economy, which means in a free economy, everything falls. And where you drop, it stop. Where you hang, it swing. That is a free economy. And so, you say we're in a free economy. In this free economy, the prices of anything is determined between the seller and the buyer. This is why the Rent Assessment Board has no place again in our economy. Even though there's a law that governs the Rent Assessment Board that says person mustn't advantage a tenants, etc. Folks, this is why prices, measures and control, prices, weights and measures and control are no longer able to control prices out there. As a youth man, people from the government services to be outside checking prices and say, look, bring that down. It ensures that every person can eat. It ensures it's a balanced playing field. But they create an open economy, and whatever price they set, whatever price you pay, that is the price. So every week, the businessmen are carrying their prices up. Could you imagine the Studley Park quarry, where you could now get a whole load? What's the price for a load again? About $600, $500. I remember the chief secretary saying the price. What's the price again? 500? For a whole load. You can imagine that. Place it into private hands. In 2011, a former member of this house, a former colleague of the Secretary of Finance, who was not even secretary then, his name is Gary Melville. That's a man who I lost in the sunset of yesterday. He told the media, he told Tobago, it is on the THA website, where he said the quarry can make $120 million per year. That is 2011. $120 million per year. He was further speaking about developing the little pier, the little jetty they have in Studley Park, so barges can come from any part of the world and they could sell it back. And at the end of his statement, he said they will not privatize the quarry, they will leave it in the hands of the THA. He said that. It's there. Check it. It is there on your website, but you all don't read. I blame you all for that. Misquoting figures, misquoting events. Now we're trying to read now. Look for it on the website. The 11th of January, 2011. He said that. Now if I read somewhere again where the kind of volcanic rocks that are in the quarry, there are only 2 places in the world apart from Tobago that can be found. It cannot be found nowhere in Trinidad. Yes? And it can only be found in Nova Scotia, Canada, and the Dominican Republic. Learn something. The teacher in the house. Learn something. So it is something to be treasured. You can call it diamond. We have it here. And we have a prime minister who in 1996, when he came up here to check it out, said it is nothing but overburden, rotten rock. That's how he classified it. He dismissed it. Rotten rock, overburden. He's no geologist. Quack. Your masters on that side is a quack geologist. I call no name, Madam Presiding Officer. Allow me to make my speech, please. I'm not giving way. I'm not giving way. Coach your point. I'll allow you. I know you can't take it.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. It is known that one is not allowed to make remarks concerning members of Parliament and so on. It is not allowed. And indeed, reference to the Prime Minister, it is clear who the Prime Minister is.
Minority Leader, please be mindful of your speech and going forward. Point of order is accepted.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I want to advise my friends in the future, when you're quoting point of order, you quote the chapter and the verse, please. You no longer run this house. This house is now run.
Minority Leader, you don't run this house either. I am asking you, please, to get back to your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. As I was saying, they beat down the volcanic rock that we had in Studley Park. They make it sound like if it is nothing good. Overburdened. Then today, they boast about the diamond we have there. I say to my good friend, the Secretary for Finance, member of Bacolet, Mount St. George, I say to him, why wasn't revenues from the quarry placed into the budget? Why? Why? I ask a question. Because if in 2011, the quarry could have made $120 million per year, today, that may have escalated, appreciated to $150 million. But no, they are not interested in generating revenue to spend. They want to get revenue from private sector. And the private sector they are talking about is not here in Tobago, it is in Trinidad and beyond. That's what they have been saying on the television all along. Private sector will help them build house. Private sector will help them do this, will help them do that. Sounds to me like they have a rewards card for those who supported them. Those who support them, they have a rewards card for them. Give them something. How much money do we intend to generate from the private sector? By grants, by loans? Nothing is about that in the budget. Nothing. Are we going to expect Trinidad again to give us $4.9 billion when last year the budget was $5.3 billion and they got a slap in the face when budget day came? $2.3 billion. But the Honorable Secretary for Finance didn't even have the courtesy, he didn't even have the nerve to come back in this house and say what the new budget will now be. He didn't. He didn't. He continued operating with inflated figures and then say they have no money. I want to say here now, you see when budget day come in Trinidad and your masters in Trinidad say to you that, hey, you have been given this slice of the pie. When the central government say to you, you are given this slice of the pie, I want you to come back to this house and say to us, in this house, how you intend to use that money so as to develop Tobago further. Certainly, over the last 3 years, the average transfer from Trinidad to Tobago was about $2.5 billion. But yet you continue to make budgets that are obnoxious, that are unrealistic, and sell the people Tobago dreams. We have had enough of those kind of budgets. I'm asking myself, where's the quarry gone? I visited the quarry last week, Thursday, and I saw a number of jobs being advertised. Madam Presiding Officer. A number of jobs, and I'll go to it. Do you know? Employment opportunities. Studley Park Enterprise Limited. Is it the same quarry we're talking about? The quarry that the former Secretary for Works said would remain in Tobago hands. The quarry that could make $120 million a year. Is it now under some kind of a SP, Studley Park Enterprise Limited? And it has a Tobago House of Assembly logo next to it? Are those jobs gazetted? Is there a structure for that quarry? Did you all consult with the unions? There is not one union, there are two unions there. There is the daily paid and there is the monthly paid union. There is NUGE and there is PSA. We are the recognized majority union and also we share it with NUGE. NUGE looks after daily paid, we look after the monthly paid. Haven't they read the Civil Service Act? Are they aware of the laws that govern this country? The PSA, whensoever the PSA signs an agreement with the CPO regarding terms of employment and conditions of service, it is for all persons in the central government in Trinidad, all persons in the statutory authorities, and there are few of them which are mentioned in the Act, and all persons for the THA. So I don't know how come the monthly paid persons in the quarry were not allowed to be represented at all. Their views weren't taken into consideration. How come that they could just disregard the rule of law with such obstinance, as if to say there is no need to consult? I'm shocked. Here are a few of the jobs. Haulage supervisor, heavy equipment operator, and there are these people now. Quarry drill operator, and there are people doing that work now. Drill helper, and there are people doing that work now. Cashier operator, and there are people doing that work now. Sales clerk, don't we have sales clerk now? Stores assistant, business operation analyst, and there are people doing that work now. Or is this a means of terminating employees who have worked long and hard in that quarry, who helped contribute materials, whether it be ready mix, whether it be aggregate, whether it be boulders, whatever, to develop this nation? Are we going to just wipe them off the map? What is the plan for these persons? If we're talking about Tobago employment level is now down to 3%, which is full employment, how do you intend to deal with persons who may be on the breadline according to your mandate? Because when I inquired from the chief administrator, I said, is this a government thing? He says it's almost private. Almost private, they say. They don't have to follow the rules. He's sitting behind your back. Do with him what you want. Whatsoever you may, do with him. But he's a public officer. I may have to represent him too. Do with him whatever you may. But he's a public officer, and I may have to represent him too. But he said, I asked the question, I said, are those positions classified by the CPO? She said, no, we don't need that. It's like a private thing. They could do what they want. He's there. Deal with him if you want. I may have to defend him too. And I will defend him. I will defend him if you deal with him. I know how you all are on that side. Madam Presiding Officer, it worries me that we are speaking full employment for Tobago. And in the face of that, they are coming through the back door. And they are trying to pull the rug of employment, the rug of stability, of financial security from the legs of those who have been standing on it at the study park quarry for years now. Maybe their life doesn't matter to you. But you know what? These people in that gallery are human beings too. They are human beings. And no union has the right to just wish the lives of workers away. No union. In another time and place, I would have behaved in a particular manner that would have made you rethink your position with immediacy, with urgency. Yes, I would have. But this is the house. And I will be honorable today. But understand this. We will not allow you all to throw away that quarry that can bring revenue that we so need. 150 million to this gallery and to this house and to this country. You want to throw it away? So when we're talking about economic development, or we're talking about the development status of a country or an island, you must first of all speak about economic development. I want to go one step further. They are talking about some things that they want to get involved in. The garment manufacturing. You hear that? Well, I understand clearly well that some of my colleagues on the other side are in need of some good garments. But I will say this. For the year 2011, CSO estimated that the key sectors targeted by the THA, and there are 3 of them, garment manufacturing, produce $0. That was a key sector. Were you wrong, Joe? Member for Bacolet, Montreal, were you wrong? You weren't wrong. Don't say nothing then. Don't say nothing. Don't say nothing. You want to be wrong, you now come. But I'll say this. That was the key sector. Garment manufacturing. On the THA record, that was high. But it brought in $0. The next one was agro-processing. Food, beverages, cigarette. They want to get into business, but they don't know how to run business. That brought in $22.1 million. A paltry sum. $22.1 million. And the next one, art and craft and woodworking. Art, craft and woodworking. I thought that was a big thing to you because, you know, everybody wants to buy a craft shop, everybody wants to do some woodwork shop. And I heard the Secretary of Finance on Rise and Shine this morning peddling untruths to the nation. I'll come back to that. This area here called art and craft and woodworking only made $1.1 million. Could that sustain an economy? Could that get us out of the miry clay of this economic arrest that we are in? 1.1 million, 22.1 million? The answer is no. Garment manufacturing, no. So if in 2011, you made almost no money from these sectors, what are you going to do differently now? We want to hear that. To make these sectors work. It didn't stop there. It didn't stop there at all. Let me get back to a particular book. I almost passed out when I read something last night in this book. I said I got nightmares. I couldn't sleep. And I read from this book last night here. What shocked me is that in speaking about developing the Tobago economy and giving people support and things, they boasted of giving Tobagonians $44 million. Yes. The question was when? When did this happen? What year? Was it 2011? When? $44 million. They call it Enterprise Assistance Loan. Was it a PNM Rewards program? Because there are many persons who complain to me over and over again, Madam Presiding Officer, I seek your protection, please, from the member of Bacolet. And I take my seat with caution in place. You need not be speaking when I'm speaking. I seek your protection.
Please continue.
Okay, Madam Presiding Officer, it is on record. I seek your protection, but thank God he's now silent. They spent $44 million of taxpayers' money on people, our money, on Tobagonians, and that wasn't bad. But what kind of a worry me? Those persons, how many were they? What type of business they were into is my question. That's what worried me. How many persons? What type of business they were into? Because not only did they spend money, they went further and they carried them on tours. They carried them to trade and investment conventions in Trinidad, Caribbean and Central America Action Conference, Caribbean Fashion Week in Jamaica, Summer Commonwealth Countries League Fair in London, Annual Havana Trade Fair. They went all over the world. And I asked myself, what do we have to show for that? What do we need to be? Who is producing garments? Who is producing crafts and would work for exports? Who? How many dollars and cents do we expect to make this year from that? From all those training, all those joyrides? How much? We need to spend the money that is transferred from Trinidad to Tobago in a way that encourages sustainable development. And we need to encourage persons to seek sustainable employment. That's not necessarily permanent jobs. Madam Presiding Officer, there is noise on the next side of the table. Where are the training and advisory programs to help them get to that sunny day? Where are those programs? Where are those programs that you walk with these persons, just spend the 44 million on? Or do we just forget that and start afresh again? New money, new people. New people. Where is the method statement to get us from here to there? Our economy is in shambles. Big shambles. It's a failed program, and we are here to help. This is why I'm saying to you today, let us create a committee and let us relook at a draft estimates of expenditure and revenue. Let us look at that. Let's look at it. You are giving CPEP and URP a whole lot of money, but you are not giving them materials with which to work. How could that lead to productivity? No cement. Cement truck can come. When I pass by, I say, hey, what's going on there? Boy, cement truck can come now. So we just line until they make about 10 o'clock. People are taking 3 months to put up a little wall. Is that productivity? They have allocated $131 million for expenditure. Almost 38% of the proposed budget for CPEP and URP. And they boast that in 2011, 2001 when they came in, there was 21,000 jobs, and today, the jobs, 2001, in 2001 when they took over, there were 21,000 people employed, and they boast that they have added 10,300 to that. It will not say about the people that lost their jobs in the human capital development facilitation company. Hundreds of persons lost their jobs. Hundreds. Where are those persons now? But they say we have full employment. They want to send home scores of workers that study Park Quarry and think it will be easy. I want to go to another area, Madam Presiding Officer. Let's get this area here. We are talking about export. They want to do another feasibility study for a cargo port at Cove. One was done years ago. They want to do another one. Nothing is mentioned about the Studley Park Pier that should be fully developed. Fully developed, no. Nothing is mentioned about that. They're going down there. What we will want to suggest is that you all establish what we call a Tobago Export Development Agency, which will take the lead in coordinating development in tourism, education for export, ICT for export, and the creative industries. You see, the current uncoordinated, standards-focused drive you all have, it will not work. When you read the news, and you mustn't just limit yourself to what comes over the TV or over your cable. Read the news on the World Wide Web. If you look at Reuters, they would say that they have information that Sanders was up for sale. Have you all read that? It's something to look into. Before you invest the $2 billion from the World Bank that they have to give, and it cannot be handled in Tobago, it has to go to Trinidad, think twice. Ask yourself the question, is Sanders up for sale? Yes, Reuters News, big news. Check it out. Sanders for sale. It's a hush-hush thing. I hope when they're selling Sanders, they don't sell no man's land. We are saying, if you really want to create a company, create a Tobago Export Development Agency. Again, that will look into exporting the product of tourism. Let them deal with that. How do we export that? How do we export our educated people? Around the world, people are doing that. China is doing it. Japan is doing it. Singapore is doing it. Wherever there are bright people, the world has need for them. And Tobago has some of the brightest people. Look at the people on that side, on this side, in this house, in the gallery. Could you imagine if we were to nurture that and have the appropriate universities here or educational programs here? How far we could have gone? Yes. But no. You want us to go to Trinidad and study, and when we go down, there's nothing to come back to because we have not yet learned how to nurture that. Nothing to come back to. We are also saying that the Secretary's statement that the solution is imminent when he spoke about the ferry. Very sad statement again. Very sad. Very sad statement. He's given a budget statement, and people have been quarreling for the entire year about the fast ferry. And he's saying that a solution is imminent. When they leave the gallery, his boss says to the media, yeah, that's done. July, come in the July. You know what I found out? I have found out. And I go for my information. There is a boat that is being considered. And I want to tell you what is coming to me here. Because from this phone, I control the world. From this phone, everything comes in. And I pull it up right now. And I want to tell you, there's a boat called the Ocean Flower. I don't know where they get these names from. La Caracola, the snail. Megajet, as if it's some kind of a cartoon. And now it's Ocean Flower. As if that makes it more adorable. That makes it more wanted. Ocean Flower 2. A Korean vessel that was manufactured in the year 1996, which means it's past 15 years old, and the best practice in the industry is once a boat makes 15 years, it is time to sell it and start looking for a new one, or start looking for a new one so you could sell it. That from 1996 to 2017 is 21 years. Right? Sunflower 2. As if that make it more palatable to swallow. The answer is no. Yes. Port Authority of Trinidad and Tobago signed a letter of credit for the provider on Friday. I read it out, so you can't say it's my own words. control the world from this. A tool. This comes from directly Korea, this information here. Korea itself. It's a Korean vessel. Ocean Vessel 2 is in Busan, South Korea. It needs to sail to Trinidad. Easier said than done. Right? I will go on to tell you a little bit about the boat. I could give you all the thing here. It's expected here around the 15th of July. This is what he's calling the business season. I don't know if the 15th of July is more important than Easter, if it's more important at the beginning of the year. He's calling the business season. Our Chief Secretary is saying that. He's quoted as saying that. This old boat that they want to deposit on us here in Trinidad and Tobago run the risk of breaking down. 21 years. That's the same age of the TNT Express, but 21 years old. It can hold about 225 cars, about a little over 600 persons. But do we want to be penny wise and pound foolish? I have not yet gotten the cost of operating this boat, but this boat is not the best boat. If we're talking about a new boat, then you must get something new. I recall the younger years, sometimes my mother said, I guess I'm new for you. But it's not really new, and it's from the neighbor. It's new to you, but it's not really new. We are tired of collecting boats from our neighbors. If you are saying you're getting a new boat, get something new. What will be the cost to the business community again if this boat begins to break down? Or are they going to pay some exorbitant fee for the maintenance and management of that boat? I want the Chief Secretary to respond to that. You have a chance to respond. Remember the boat name? Ocean Flower 2. Sound like a kick-up movie.
My Lord, Leader, for the record, can you please quote your sources clearly so it can be documented?
Yeah, that's come from the World Wide Web. Ocean Flower 2. Ocean Flower 2. Yes, write it down.
I'm referring to the article which you're quoting.
Let's hear from my phone, ma'am. I will not give up my sources, but I'm entitled to say information reaching me on my box. I have people. You all want to dump all kind of old boat here. All kind of old boat. All kind of old boat. And there's a talking that's taking place in the gallery, Mom, is Madam Presiding Officer. So it's disturbing me. It's disturbing me. There is also the need for us to work on agriculture and fisheries. There was a big vessel. There is a boat called the Capital of Paradise. How much money did that boat bring in for us? I didn't see it in the book. How much money did the Capital of Paradise make for Tobago? The Secretary of Finance is not speaking about that. Whenever he speaks about 2001 to 2016. He's not comparing 2016 with 2017 or 2015 with 16. He's trying to blind us. First, on accountability, the people of Tobago would like to know what has become of that fishing vessel on which millions, not thousands, millions were spent. I want you to answer that today. On the basis for redevelopment of our fisheries, neglecting the existing professional fisher folk. This budget also does not account for the current state of the fishing industry in Tobago and no provisions for its development. an assessment of the state of fisheries is urgently needed, and a program designed to update technologies, knowledge, and skills in the industry. Regarding the redevelopment of agriculture and fishery, the current approach of the THA is based on profound ignorance of the facts about why export agriculture in Tobago is in a mess in the first place. A proper review will reveal the following answers. Low technology. Wait, the technology in agriculture. Cutlass and hoe. And we want to compete with the rest of the world, we want to export food. Cutlass and hoe. Low skilled labor and high cost of unskilled labor caused by the THA employing some 80%. Small scale and the inability to achieve international competitive prices, even in niche activities like cocoa. Too small. And my partner talking about creating some cocoa something. You all cut down the cocoa in Roxborough and put up housing. When you could have used the hillside, which doesn't flood, to put the housing, you all cut it down. Now when it floods, all the sewer back up and create a stench. The water table is high, and even on a regular day, the sewer is still smelling in that development in Roxborough. People have to live with that for the rest of their lives. So it's built in a bad place. Cut down the cocoa to put that there. These imply that the agriculture we will succeed in doing in Tobago will have to be mainly high technology agriculture done for food security and food safety. We can't do agriculture like them people with them tractors, you know. We can't do that. Indeed, the fact that the THA does not take its own old talk seriously is evident in the allocation of only $4 million to agriculture. Take that. You're interested in agriculture? They say they want to open create some employment in the east and north side. Create these little cottages that they close down. The very same cottages that they closed down, they want to open it back. But before they open it, they want to spend money repairing it. A rewards program for the boys. Then they speak about $80 million of access road, of which the Secretary speaks would be better conceived as funding for agrotourism. Yeah? Have you all thought about that? Agrotourism? Is that too big for you all to comprehend? Somebody may want to come to a place like Dalaford, and they may want to stay on a cocoa estate where they actually partake in the process of converting cocoa into chocolate. Have you ever conceived that? As when you're in France and certain parts of the world, you could go in a vineyard and pick grapes, and you could watch how the process is being done. Or as in Grenada, I think it is, or St. Vincent, we could go to one of the rum factory. Is it Grenada or St. Vincent? One of the rum factory and see how they make the rum actually from the sugar cane. There's an old cocoa house in Roxborough. Is it being utilized? Agrotourism. Maybe they have something called a cassava. They call it cassava. A cassava company that is housed in the Ministry of Finance, Secretary of Finance office. And for heaven's sake, he will not report and tell us how much money the cassava company made and how much it's intended to make in the future years. What he's saying to us is how much money they're going to spend on it. And you are the Secretary of Finance. Cassava company. They say that even a pound of cassava is grinding on a weekly basis. But you want more and more companies. You all don't know how to manage on that side. But you're opening more companies. Study Park, Korea again, to break down. If we enter into agrotourism, it will have an impact on every single community in Tobago, and it will attract the youths. It would be supported initially by at least, it should be supported initially by at least $200 million. Spend it on this. Agrotourism. Find all of these old copper trees. Refine them. Put them back to use. Some of these old water wheels, you must have one in operation at least. Build it back, put it in operation. Let people come to see how these things operate. Grow some sugar cane again for the making of sugar. And we're talking about a high technology, high quality thing that we could use for our own food security here. You don't have to sell, but you could use it for our own food security here. And obviously, our people in Trinidad will once again respect the brand name Tobago. As a younger man, when you go to Trinidad to sell in the market, once they hear Tobago Chenet, Tobago Mango, Tobago Zabuka, Tobago Pawpaw, Tobago Fish, they're running for it. What I've watched for 16 years, this executive, because they are one, this executive, I've watched them replace Beneballs with sesame seed. Yes, I've watched them do that. You can't find Beneballs now. I heard a tourist grumbling the other day at the airport, asking, what's this? She said she bought Beneball, but she got sesame seed. She wanted to sue. We have to review the way we do business. Those persons who are selling down at the airport down there, why are they in a covered area that is properly protected from the negative fumes of vehicles? Protected area. Why do we still have persons at the Crown Point International Airport that is on par with Heathrow Airport, that is on par with Gatwick Airport, that is on par with Frankfurt International Airport? Why is it that when you enter the airport, people are not protected from the gas fumes of the vehicle? Why? $43 million spent to upgrade the airport. And all they did was to paint the roof and put some fancy lights up on the ceiling. Some big fans to cut off man's head. Right? And that was good for the THA. That was good for the THA. Madam Presiding Officer, if I had done that.
Can we please allow the minority leader to complete his statement?
I know you have a trouble with the truth, but today truth will be revealed because we come for you. And what I miss out, my colleagues on my right and my left shall put in. We have been spending money and not getting any single thing to show for it. We believe that we should have in Tobago here our own Kendall Agrotourism Research Faculty. We believe that. Yes, put something in the country. Kendall Agrotourism Research Faculty with an interest in engineering, hillside trails, lodge development, horticulture, floriculture parks, and a restoration of archaeological heritage associated with cocoa and sugar production. There's so many of those all around the place that needs to be restored. Focus on that if we're talking about building the economy. When we talk about social equity and social development, I must say there is increasing global agreement that equitable access to capital assets is an important basis for long-run development in Trinidad and Tobago. Each country must develop an evidence-based plan for increasing social equity and eliminating poverty. I'll read that again. Each country must develop an evidence-based plan for increased social equity and eliminating poverty. This budget provides no data on the state of poverty and the distribution of assets in Tobago, except to admit that there are 7,500 applications for housing. You satisfied with that? Today, this morning I got up and I saw my friend on the television talking on Rise and Shine. They asked him, since 2001, how many houses have you built? And listen to the loophole answer. The man of finance. Listen to the loophole answer. I don't know the figures, but I can tell you how much estates we have built upon. Shameful. Shameful. He don't know how much houses they have built, but he can tell you the estates they are built upon. Shameful indeed. How many houses, more importantly, was given out in the fiscal year that is now in the past? The last fiscal year. How many houses? How many houses were built in that fiscal year? Because this is what this budget is about. Comparing your progress. Measuring this year with that year. Not measuring this year with 2001, as you so oftentimes do in a statement. That's folly. It's rubbish to be comparing the present with 2001. If you're dealing with 2018, you must compare 2017, or more directly, 2016 with 2015. You must compare it. Let us see what progress you have made, if you are closer to your target now, or you're further apart. But no, 7,500 houses people are requesting. And what you are doing, when you own at least 40% of the lands in Tobago, what are you doing with those lands? We want to find out. What are you doing with those state lands you own? What are you doing with those lands? I heard a story about a parcel of land in Argyle, Kendall area, where a woman was working this land for a long time. And up come this executive, this, because they are one. Whether it's one and the last one, you are one. You said that. And they took away the land from the lady, and they give it to someone who's associated with them around election time. And I said to the lady, that area falls in my constituency, and I will investigate that. We can challenge those things in law. And let me say to the nation now, no executive who's in power can violate the law. All right? You have rights under the law, under the Constitution, and those rights must be protected. No man must be deprived of his property except by due process. Woman cultivating land for almost 15 years now. All of a sudden, move from that piece there. We'll give you our next piece, but the next man come and take it. We'll deal with that at the appropriate place. Where is the social equity? How are you dealing with your assets? I got a very rude phone call from someone that falls under the division of the assemblyman for Codler Hall, Scarborough, calling to tell me if I got the invitation to the opening of the Argyle Enterprise something. Micro-enterprise, something you call it. Fancy name. All I feel is movies. Everything has to get a long name. When I got the phone call, I had to put the phone down. Because I am from the area, and they're saying to me there, did you get the invitation? The place is opening today. The place is opening today. I was shocked. I was shocked to recognize all these people were at the place. All these people. What is Joel Jack doing there? Secretary for Finance. Secretary for Finance. The Chief Secretary is there trying to force a smile. And the Assemblyman for Scarborough Color Hall is there. Not a person from Roxborough. This place that lie abandoned for almost 10 years under the same administration, when it served their purpose to gain a 1 minute of fame, they open it very hush-hush, and they ensure I was not available to say it's opening in 2 hours' time. Can you attend? She's there. She'll speak about it. Very rude. But it was for a Kodak moment. That's what they did it for. It's in the budget book. Social equity, social development. As a government, as a THA, we have a social contract to the people of Tobago to ensure that we protect them. And in doing so, we must ensure that there is housing for everybody. Every single one. The rich, the poor, those who are not so well, there must be housing for all. And they must have free and direct access, not for the boys and the girls. I'm hearing that some people who are within this room are living in houses, and they will say to you, it's not my house. 2 and 3 house. We're talking now how we should invest. We are saying there should be a social development commission. We want to recommend it on this side, a social development commission in Tobago, which has the responsibility to monitor, design, and implement strategies for individual and household asset acquisition and the development in Tobago communities. Such a commission would have to rely on historical record to guide and assist households investing in the acquisition of capital assets to overcome the limitation of reliance on their skilled and unskilled labor to earn income. Important here is support for investment in tertiary education. That's what the commission will do. We'll ensure that we have investment in tertiary education, knowledge, and skills and ability to create new ideas. Where's the think tank in Tobago? Where's the think tank? Do we have a place where ideas come out from? This is why we should create a non-political social development commission in Tobago. It will ensure that we invest in education and even training and skills that our people could unlock the future with their bright ideas. Investment in residential housing is also an asset. The Social Development Commission of Tobago will deal with that. Investment in housing. We have so much lands. The Secretary boasts that there's so much wood in Tobago and so much people engaging in light manufacturing with woodwork. You call a man named the man must be cringe when you call his name on TV. Because he's no friend of yours. No friend of yours whatsoever. That Social Commission development in Tobago will deal with the investment in owning commercial property as assets, including viable enterprises in emerging export sectors of Tobago. It will also encourage persons to engage in stocks. There's something called OneCoin now. You heard about that? OneCoin. Yeah? What is it? Talk to you should put your silence. I mustn't talk while I'm speaking. Learn that. You will. No, I'm speaking about you. Sir, don't speak with me. I'm on the floor. What's wrong with put them inside here. All right, so there is this whole system of trading right now, where the whole world seems to be engaging in trade. Some persons are buying gold, some are buying silver, and there is one coin, there is cryptocurrency, and all different kind of things out there. The Social Development Commission will educate Tobagonians on how to engage in these things. That's what it will do. It will say to Tobagonians that you can invest your money in this, that you can get into this business. We have done the business, we have done the homework, we have the data, and we can say this business will work. More than that, you will walk with them and work with them until those businesses are successful. And when time comes to report on the budget, you will say that we have 5 companies that have now grown from micro to macro. Because in order to make it on the world stage, we need to move from micro to macro. And we need to build communities around businesses. Sometimes you put a business in the middle of nowhere, and you ask yourself, who will service that business? We have to start to build communities. In every housing project, there should be something like a nursery. In every housing project, there should be a little recreational park, not just for children, but for adults, a gym to work out. In every housing project, there should be homework centers. This is how developed nations operate. He spoke that they are transparent, that they are accountable, and that they meet with people. They move a whole motion here last time, my friends on that side. A whole motion just to get permission to go and talk to the community, which they were doing long before we entered the chamber. But when you do that, you must do it from a genuine heart. Because all of Tobago, from Charleville to Crown Point, they are waiting for the opportunity to be consulted about every single thing. They want to be consulted. They want you to be accountable to them, and they want you to be transparent. Madam Presiding Officer, we cannot implement any development plan, including whatever passes for a plan. We cannot implement this. If the THA continues to run a closed shop, that excludes the majority of Tobagonians from routine participation in making and monitoring decisions that affect their lives. This, and not the current constitutional relationship with Trinidad, is the major constitutional barrier to the development of Tobago. The following 4 international practices should be adopted. 1, joint policy design, through which government provides a forum, physical or digital, computer. I don't even see you all have a proper website on it that says we are discussing this as our legislative agenda for the rest of the year. There's not even a legislative agenda. Whatever they go home and they think about, whether it be done Crown Point, on the beach on Crown Point, or it be in some back room, whatever they think about, they come and they put it on the house here as a motion. Any sensible THC will not run its affairs like that. There ought to be a legislative agenda so the people of Tobago could know what you have in mind for them. That's the purpose of THA, to create policies for the better governance of Tobago. And so if you were engaging in consensus building, and you were transparent, and you held yourself to be accountable, then you will truly be representing the masses out there. But there's not even a website where a man could punch in some information and send it here. Not even that. There's not even a meeting room where the minority council or the executive council could meet with members of the constituency if they come here to meet with them on a day like day. Nothing. But you're passing a budget. These are components of a good budget. How do we cater to meet the needs of our people and to engage them? And so we're saying we need to introduce a digital platform for good governance. All right? We need to introduce that. We need to create an office called Tobago Office of Public Defender. Community-based participatory budgeting. We spoke of that in our manifesto. What we said on this side is that we would give every single village in Tobago $10 million each. 10. That would have only amounted to $500 million. Right? $500 million. Sorry, not 10. 1 million each we said we would have given them. Yeah, 1, yeah. Nah. We said we would have given them, there are 50 villages in Tobago. There are 50 villages in Tobago. All right? Yeah. No. Of course. And I'll say this to you now. This is the Secretary of Finance to come. Not you. Madam Presiding Officer, they have taken this house for a house to laugh. And it's good to see they can laugh. But let them understand, not all skin teeth is joke. So we have said in our manifesto, in our mandate, that of the 50 villages in Tobago, we will give each $10 million, which will amount to $500 million, $500 million, $500 million, that's what I meant. $500 million, 500 million. No, that is not hard, because we're talking development. If we are talking development, the development must take place in these villages. That's what I'm saying. Because these villages constitute Tobago. And there is no country and no town. There is no urban and rural Tobago. There is one Tobago. And we are saying the time has come for us to develop Lansomi as we develop Crown Point. The time has come for us to make Tobago a beautiful place. And that will involve the community participating in the budget. You'll come to a village like Palatevere, a village like Roxborough, a village like Canaan, Bonaccord, and you'll say, what are some of the things you want to see for this year? And obviously, you will help guide the process. So whatever development takes place there, the people will be able to own it, they will be able to measure it, and they can truly say, the money spent on development was really spent, because 10 million of that was spent in my community. We were also saying the time has come for the public-private partnership not to go outside of Tobago, but to take place inside Tobago. There are many contractors in Tobago here who are not PNM, but they are not getting work. We're going to deal with that at an appropriate time. This is no reward cards program all around in here, you know. No reward cards program. This is a Tobago program. We are also saying, on this side, the Minority Council, that any foreign company who is coming to Tobago to engage in major development can only do so with a Tobago company collecting a particular percentage of that contract. We're talking sustainable development. We're talking about spreading the thing around. These are the things that will create transparency. We are also saying on this side that in order to create the competitive edges, right, so as to ensure that all our trade men and women would be in a position to be more productive, to incite them, to create an impetus, to drive them to do better. You must not only make the ACH a digital thing, but you must also create a digital listing of all the trade men and women in your country. You all have that? You all didn't have that. And you must be able to monitor the work that they do. So you ensure that when the year comes, all of these trade men and women, they are all given a fair bite at the cherry. Not run a rewards program. But if you don't have a red card in your hand, you ain't getting nothing. Dog, eat your supper. No, that is not how Tobago ought to be run. Good governance deals not only with accountability and transparency, it deals with following the rule of law. And the rule of law dictates that you cannot discriminate when dealing with Tobagonians. I want to go a little further on. $2.5 billion was spent last year. How much of that is realized in Tobago? What did we get for it? Nothing. Nothing. We have a situation where the market is still leaking, where they want to take the market vendors out of Scarborough and carry them somewhere where nobody operates from. That's how we operate. Take them from where they are and carry them quite down, somewhere downtown, somewhere down low side, close to the shore park, somewhere down there. That's what they want to do. People are hurting. Our fishermen, they are hurting too. The rescue mission for fishermen is not as Tobago-centric as we want it to be. Many of them are contending on the high seas out there with pirates. Guns are being traded on the high waters, sometimes for food. Just the other day, one of our fishermen ended up quite on Caracou. How do we monitor that? How do we protect our fishermen? Have we quantified the amount of fishes in our sea? Why is it that we have that incursion from our neighbors coming in to our waters and nothing is being said about it? Why is it that they're drilling all over the Tobago, letting go explosive, destroying tuna nests, etc., and you are not coming to the house and say how you're going to treat with that? Why is it? Why is it that in Roxborough, from Kendall right up to the depot, the sea is trying to reclaim the land? And the only thing that's happening there, they dropped 12 big boulders as if that was the foundation of heaven on the sea of Roxborough, on the beach of Roxborough. Bow. So nobody could go down there now without damaging their legs. I mean, where I come from? What is the plan to protect the properties? And the last time I checked, there may have been about 100 properties along the shoreline. 100 or more, last time I checked. What is the plan to save those properties from high tide? What is the plan? Just drop boulders? How do you balance the ecosystem when you drop all these boulders in the sea? Is there a backlash somewhere else? I know the Secretary for Environment will speak about that. He's just getting his learning curve on the job. We have come to a very sad place in our history where what should be a budget is made, $5 billion, no idea is given as to how we will make the money. The only place in Tobago now that could go into direct operation, produce money, is the quarry. Because that is A-class material we're talking about. A-class material. And you all are not thinking about the quarry. You want to give it to someone. And I will not warn you about that person today. But I want to ask a question. The chairman of that quarry, is that chairman Mr. Alan Richards? I want the Chief Secretary to answer the question when he gets up to speak. Is it Mr. Alan Richards, the chairman of that company? And if so, is it the same Alan Richards who owns a property that has been rented by the THE? I'm asking a question inside the house. I want to ask another question. Whether or not Mr. Alan Richards has a trucking service that provides aggregate for projects. I want to ask a question. Whether or not Mr. Alan Richards is associated with the Roxborough Administrative Complex. I want to ask a question. Whether or not a person who is a contractor can be a chairman of a particular product that is in demand by contractors. I want to ask that question. These are pertinent questions, and Tobago doesn't belong to a few. It belongs to all of us. All our neighbors, Stingberry right here. You want to protect people. He must be a very important man. Must be a very important man. And I walk with a sign here because as I met my colleagues here today from Studley Park, they are concerned. They are concerned about their livelihood. They are concerned about some company, Studley Park Enterprise something. They are concerned about the lack of consultation. They have given me a sign that says Save Studley Park
Minority Leader.
Quarry.
We are not going to be allowing posters. That is not part of parliamentary practice. So please put away your poster.
This is not a document I'm reading from. I'm not going to post this anyway. I'm reading from this document here. Madam Presiding Officer, a document I'm reading from. A poster is something I post up.
I've already asked you to put it aside, please.
This is what I'm reading from?
Yes.
All right. On a point of order, I rise, Madam Presiding Officer. And I rise while I'm speaking because I want to be shown directly where in the standing orders it says the size of document I can read from. I want to be shown in the standing orders, Madam Presiding Officer, and I will sit.
Mr. Duke, as presiding officer, I have made a ruling. If you are complete with your budget statement, we can wrap it up from here. If not, please proceed.
And Madam Presiding Officer, I have obliged. I've complied with your ruling. I'm not challenging your ruling. I'm simply stating that as a representative in the House, a minority leader, you owe it to me to say where any standing orders are violated. That's all. That's my right. Inside the House, say where are violated standing orders. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking, Madam Presiding Officer. I'm not saying I've complied. It's away. But we cannot, say what you want. Show me where in the standing orders have violated the Act. I have a document to read from. I've put it away. Show me the standing orders.
Minority Leader, if you do not proceed with completing your presentation, we can end it here for you. Okay? please proceed. Do not challenge me in this chair.
I have 10 minutes. And I'm going to spend my 10 minutes wrapping up. Madam Presiding Officer, I thank you for your admonition. But I will go on to say this. In this Tobago House of Assembly, where we sit as assemblymen and councillors to engage in one of the most important laws that can possibly be passed in Tobago, a financial law. That's what it is. All right? It requires openness. It requires each and every one of us to present our information in accordance with the standing orders, a book that I've always obliged to follow. I read it day and night. And I want to be guided by the standing orders. And I also want to ensure that I'm allowed to be heard on this side so as to represent the people on that side and outside. Because long after we have left this chamber, persons are concerned about the budget. How do you anticipate? How does the Executive Council plan to treat with the fallout from closing the Studley Park quarry? How? How? That's my concern. I do not represent myself here. How could a quarry that stands to make $150 million per year not be placed as an important avenue for revenue in the book called Estimates of Revenue for the Financial Year 2018? How come? If this has been privatized, why are you spending $26 million of our money on a company that is privatized already? Who will be getting the quarry? Who will be running it? What is the criteria for persons being hired in the quarry? What will become of those persons who are now working in the quarry? You could run, but you can't hide. The House is only the place for the debate. But I say unto you, my friends on that side, long after the House is closed, there will be a debate in the streets of Tobago about this so-called draft estimates. Where the revenue coming from? Where throughout Tobago? And people are still lining up for homes and begging for homes. For years you have promised Roxborough a hospital. Now you are saying you're expanding the hours in the health center from 8 to 8, something you all copied from PDP. We said we will open the health centers from 6 to 10, Sunday to Sunday. We will not close it because you don't get sick on you don't get healthy on Friday and start back on Sunday. You have crushed the business sector in Tobago, so you can encourage the business sector from elsewhere to come in, buy up chunks of land, and put on chunks of business, and you call that development. You have bought hundreds of acres on Monday. It should be opened right through. But for you, the furthest your mind allow you is to extend the hours a little bit. That's the trouble we have. You all are not on the ground. You all are in the sky. And someday, someday. I'm hoping that when the people are ready, because they're not quite ready, when they call for an election, that you will not be able to say, give me another chance. I'm hoping that you will be so satisfied with the havoc you reap on the Tobago economy. You'll be so embarrassed by your failing policies that you will just say, we will not contest. We will just do ourselves a service and go into oblivion, go into the past. Today, as I wrap up, I say we will not be supporting this budget unless this budget goes to a committee where we can work on a decent budget that can reach Trinidad by June 30th. And we hold ourselves available to meet with you all in that committee so we can fix that budget properly. Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer.
Chief Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I thank you for the opportunity to speak to the people of Tobago and by extension the people of Trinidad and Tobago through you, Madam Presiding Officer, on this the occasion of my first budget presentation in this honorable House. I begin by congratulating the Deputy Chief Secretary and the Secretary of Finance and the Economy for his skillful presentation of the budget and its estimates. I take this opportunity as well, Madam Presiding Officer, to thank my colleagues for their contribution in respect of the construction of this budget, and more particularly for the quality of their stewardship since we have come into office. And of course, Madam Presiding Officer, I thank the public officers who by dint of hard work and sacrifice would have been able to put the numbers together that would have formed the basis for the budget presentation that we did last week. And even as I say that, Madam Presiding Officer, I also want to thank those persons who responded positively to our request for consultation so that their views could have been considered in the context of our preparation of our budget estimates. And Madam Presiding Officer, I make bold to say that since coming into office in February of this year, we have gone where none has gone before. Madam Presiding Officer, we would have purposely titled this budget Unleashing the Creative and Productive Capacity of Our People. And from where we sit, we are comfortable that the people of Tobago have it within themselves to rise to the occasion and to treat with the issues that confront us. All they require, really and truly, is the quality of leadership to go forward. And we say today that the leadership can be found on this side. Our people have been known in the past, so in essence, there resides among us and within us a potential for certain things. Attributes of industry, of resilience, of honesty, capacity for hard work, self-reliance, and a sense of independence. Today I make a call to all of us on this island that we either return to these values or perhaps we need to forward to these values as prerequisites for surmounting the challenges that are both confronting us today and those that are imminent. Madam Presiding Officer, when we would have attempted to seek the mandate of the people of Tobago and thereby establish a form of social contract, we would have said to the people of Tobago that our vision, particularly in the short to medium term, was the development of an economy that was sustainable, but more fundamentally one that was premised on agriculture, tourism, light manufacturing, and specialized services. And indeed, we went further, and we made the point that that economy would be undergirded by a robust education system, a dynamic health sector, an energized public service, and an industrious but hospitable people. And therefore, we are satisfied and we are confident that the budget that we would have presented on this side clearly delineates and outlines a path forward for the journey on which we have embarked. Having said that, Madam Presiding Officer, as part of my initial context for my presentation, I would be particularly negligent if I didn't at least spend a few minutes. I do not have 2 hours, but at least spend a few moments to treat with some of the attempts by the minority leader to debunk the budget presentation. And Madam Presiding Officer, of course, my colleagues at the appropriate time will respond to certain specific areas, especially those areas consistent with their portfolios. And whilst it might have been too much to expect a magnanimous contribution, given that we are talking about Tobago's development, I really did not expect a reply devoid of pragmatism, practicality, and rationality. And to think, Madam Presiding Officer, that the minority leader would describe the budget as sickening and painful. What needs to be said very positively and very forcefully is that what is sickening and painful is the fact that we had to spend the last 2 hours listening to a presentation that was frivolous, vexatious, vacuous, ridiculous, preposterous. It is clear, Madam Presiding Officer, that the minority leader, notwithstanding his shenanigans, listens to me from time to time. And it does cause him some confusion, because there were times in his presentation that I was wondering whether he was supporting the budget or he was contradicting the budget. Such was his presentation, actually a mishmash of logic, replete with misrepresentations, convoluted arguments, and contradictions. In one instance, he's saying that we have no plan. And in another instance, he's saying that we need to consult. Now tell me, you want to consult or you want a plan? But I say to the people of Tobago, through you, Madam Presiding Officer, that let us beware. The core personality of an individual does not change. And that the road to hell is paved with good intention. And I take this opportunity to caution the minority leader, because he likes to give advice to us on this side. I know he goes to church from time to time, and that is commendable. But I need to remind him that those who know it and do it not shall be beaten with many stripes. So, in essence, I advised the minority leader to refrain from speaking from both sides of his mouth. But I was making the point a while ago about the minority leader listening to me. And it is evident, because in some of his contribution, he did allude to some of our plans, you know, and attempting to put that and to flip that as though they were representative of his own ideas. Madam Presiding Officer, it bears repeating that Tobago has made tremendous strides in the last 16 years. It does bear repeating. And in fact, Madam Presiding Officer, we really would have just made the point that a platform has been created for those of us who have now been handed the baton to take it and run with it. The statistics are there. Employment or unemployment was 13% in 2001, and that in respect of the last quarter of 2016 is less than 4%. Those are undeniable facts. Quantitatively, and the minority leader did make reference to it, there were 21,700 persons employed in 2001, and that moved to 32,000 plus by the third quarter of 2016. We have, in respect of an educated labor force, again, it bears repeating because the point must be made, that it was 5% of the labor force in 2001, and that has gone to 20% in 2016, representing a 400% increase. And Madam Presiding Officer, if I were in a more combative mood, I would have said it probably may need to stick in their craw, but I wouldn't say that because as an individual who is committed to law and order, I shall set the example. We have, Madam Presiding Officer, the highest number of community centers per capita anywhere in the world. The highest number of sporting fields and lighted fields, etc., per capita anywhere in the world. The highest number of health centers per capita anywhere in the world. We have 17 health centers thereabout, and a general hospital seating about 100 beds for 65,000 people. I asked the question, where else in the world is that available? And therefore, when we say that much has been done over the last 16 years, when we say that we are comfortable with a platform that has been created, it is to these that we speak. However, Madam Presiding Officer, real challenges exist, and there are issues that we must face. We all know them. The minority leader knows them, and I say to us that we ignore them at our peril. The issue of productivity is one that I was addressing on the platform during the elections, and I can't remember any other potential leader opposite to us making any attempt to address that as one of the critical issues that we must address going forward. The absence of a real manufacturing sector, we have said that, I have spoken to it. The minority leader referred to the opening of the Argyle multi-purpose micro center, and indeed, on that occasion, I made reference to the fact that in Tobago, we have gotten to the point where we import, and he spoke to it, he took it from a speech I made, that Benet balls seem to have been replaced by sesame seed balls. And more fundamentally, that Sesame Street balls are made in Trinidad and are sent to Tobago to be sold as Tobago Benet balls. That is not new. That is not new information. I have addressed that. And I'm saying these are the things that we must pay attention to. We import tamarind balls or tamarind balls. I think it's from Taiwan. How did we get there? These are some of the things that we must confront and treat with if we are to take Tobago to the next level. And that is why on this side, and as part of our philosophy for development, we talked about a particular kind of community development model. Tobago can do, because we believe in the spirit of our people. And we also spoke about metanoia, which represents in a very real sense the need for us to change our mental models, the need for us to have a critical look at the lens through which we see the world and adjust them accordingly. As I said on more than one occasion in the past, we have to get to the point where we change our approach to treating with things. And we need to do that fast. And as I made that point, Madam Presiding Officer, I need to say to us as a people, yes, we can be critical, but let us become constructively critical. Because Tobago is a small part of the universe. And because of technology, whatever we say is instantaneously transmitted to the rest of the world. And how we conduct ourselves, in fact, we are making statements about ourselves. And I'll give you an example, Madam Presiding Officer. I had cause to interact recently with two persons, one from the United Nations Development Program and another Caribbean national, who came to Tobago to treat with some issues relative to the development and planning of certain activities in Tobago. And what struck me was their comment. Firstly, it was the gentleman from UNDP. And he said he has worked all over the world, but he has never found such negativity in Trinidad and Tobago. And I heard that and I said, okay, fine. But when it was repeated by the Caribbean national who said that he has worked all over the Caribbean, but in this country, and in Tobago in particular, he has never found such negativity, I said to myself, no, something is wrong and it has to be addressed. Why are we beating up on ourselves like this? Is a question that I would want us to reflect on. Because life is about solving problems and making decisions. And if we do not believe in our capacity to solve our own problems and to make critical decisions to advance our cause, then we are in real trouble, because no one is going to come here to do that for us. And as I make that point, perhaps I could touch a bit on the sea bridge that the minority leader seems to have a lot of information on. And what needs to be said is that the efforts that would have been expended by the Port Authority Board in many instances were jettisoned by some of the spiteful and uninformed comments coming out from the people of Tobago and in some instances Trinidad. And that's a fact. So that on one day you get an email that says, we are prepared to treat with you and we can agree. And on the other day you get an email that says, it's off. because there were people around the world who were not prepared to enter into any agreements with us in Trinidad and Tobago based on our posture. And that is why I was very careful in what I would have said from time to time in respect of the Sea Bridge. And the Sea Bridge also has another dimension, but if I have time, I'll come back to it. But let me just say at this point in time to the people of Tobago that there are 2 boats that will be coming. One in respect of a passenger ferry that can also carry cargo, and one in respect of a dedicated cargo fish. And let me also say that from day one, the position had always been that there will be a short-term arrangement, to be followed by a longer-term arrangement. And the longer-term arrangement would relate to the purchase of new boats. But a short-term arrangement would not have. And clearly, because one cannot go into a parlor or a store and purchase a boat or lease a boat, especially when one has to treat with certain kinds of specs relative to that. So agreement has been reached, due diligence has been concluded, and all that remains to be done is for the contract to be executed. So that, as I would have said last week Thursday when I was asked, and I said, the light is at the end of the tunnel in essence, and the fact that 2 boats, because I was asked about one, that 2 boats will be here by the time, and I never used the word business season, I said busy season, by the time the busy season relative to the holiday period would have been upon us. Having said that, Madam Presiding Officer, there are some other areas that I want to touch on briefly. The other area that seemed to have attracted the attention of the minority leader is the whole issue of the quarry. Yes, to the point where, consistent with his style and his approach, he would have visited on Friday in an attempt to destabilize the situation up there. Of course, as I said, Madam Presiding Officer, you know, there are times I can be charitable, so that the issue of bacchanal and confusion are some of the things that I would not engage in. Arguably, the minority leader is not aware of the history of the quarry. And perhaps I could just enlighten him a bit. He likes to see himself as a teacher, you know. But I don't know that he would have made the grade. You know? But that's another matter. The quarry operations began some time ago, but he doesn't know that prior to 2001, in other words, the advent of the PNM administration in Tobago, that there were plans to privatize the quarry. He talks about reading and research. I commend that approach to him. And then he would get the facts. The coming to being of the PNM administration in 2001, that approach was jettisoned because, in consultation with the union, another attempt was being made to see whether, based on some minor adjustments to the operations, the quarry could have gotten to the point where it would have been able to deliver. And consistent with that thinking, more than $100 million would have been borrowed. I think it was from Republic Bank Limited. And new equipment was purchased, a new plant was purchased and commissioned, all with a view to bring the quarry up to a particular level of operation. We are at the point where the quarry continues to operate in a very suboptimal manner. And consistent with our plans going forward, the decision would have been taken to set up a special purpose company, not a private enterprise, a special purpose company under the purview or the auspices of the Tobago House of Assembly. And of course, and this is the point I was making in terms of he listens at times and he contradicts himself. Clearly, the quarry has potential. We have recognized that. But we also recognize that given its current configuration and method of operation, it will never, never operate at the level that is required. And therefore, the decision that would have been taken has been in the interest of everyone, including the island of Tobago and the country of Trinidad and Tobago. I wish to state for the records briefly, Madam Presiding Officer, that part of the strategy going forward is consistent with the diversification of the Tobago's economy. Because on the one hand, we can save foreign exchange, and on the other hand, we can also earn foreign exchange from a revamped set of operations at the quarry. So that the quarry is indeed a significant asset, and we shall ensure that it operates in the manner that it should. Business and operational plans have already been developed, and the competencies of current staff are being aligned with the goals and objectives of the transformational process. And there are several advantages or benefits to be derived. The development, capital development works that are envisaged in Trinidad, for example, we have the highway to Point Fortin, we have the proposed highway to Toco, we have the Toco port. Even in terms of Tobago, construction, we have the Sandals enterprise that may come on stream not too long from now, even in terms of rehabilitation of the runway. These are projects that require aggregate, and require aggregate in substantial quantities. And therefore, in order not to limit the pace of development, and that is why we spoke about enhanced delivery, we must move speedily to ensure that the prerequisites for the advancement of the economy in those areas are in place. And as I say that, Madam Presiding Officer, let me again, for the records, debunk the misrepresentation and the misstatement of the minority leader. There shall be no retrenchment. We have, as part of the policy position, stated quite unambiguously to the workers, I, Madam Presiding Officer, would have visited along with the Secretary of the Division of Infrastructure, Quarries and the Environment, and members of the National Union and Government Federated Workers Union. And we met with the workers. And we would have indicated, among other things, the point I made a while ago. So that the workers will be redeployed at no loss of benefits. Redeployed. In addition to that, we have agreed in principle with the union that there will be an incentive allowance given to all the workers currently working at the quarry. Now, we could have taken the position and offered voluntary VSEP, as we call it. But we didn't do that because we understand the role at least in the short term, that the House of Assembly plays
Member,
in the economic affairs.
you have 2 minutes left.
Pardon me?
You have 2 minutes left.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. The role that the THA plays in the development of this island. And therefore, we have said, in addition to the 2 points I've made, that workers currently at the quarry that have the requisite skill sets will be the first choice, if they so desire, to gain employment with the company. You see, Madam Presiding Officer, there are times when a leader has to be courageous, when a leader must be bold or audacious but not unreasonable. And there are times when a leader has to set the pace, especially when those who are led may not be seized of all the issues that surround certain situations. And that's quickly, Madam Presiding Officer, that I'll say on the quarry. I had more to say, but of course I do not have 2 hours, and I have to deal with that quickly. Madam Presiding Officer, in relation as well to the whole issue of agriculture and tourism, the secretaries will speak on that if they need to. But what I want to point out is that the idea of increasing work on the estates and creating access roads is a central plank.
Member, your speaking time is up.
Madam Presiding Officer, I rise under Section 52 for an extension of 10 minutes to the speaking time of the Honorable Chief Secretary.
Approved.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. So that the whole idea is that we will revitalize the agricultural sector. We have established an agricultural revitalization team that has to present a very practical and pragmatic plan, not an esoteric one at all, that speaks specifically to the sectors and the contributions expected from each of the sectors and stakeholders. In addition to that, the minority leader made reference to a $4 million expenditure that he saw in the estimates, not recognizing that what that represents really is seed capital and funding for those persons, especially the young persons, men and women who wish to get into agriculture but do not currently have capital to do so. We also took the position quite early in the term that we would establish a tourism development agency. And there again, the idea was to ensure that as we collaborate with the stakeholders, we get to the point where their views can influence policy and process going forward. And therefore, when the minority leader talks about consultation, we have taken steps to do that. But as I indicated, he speaks from both sides of his mouth because they refuse to be part of a process in our very first motion here, to be part of a committee to treat with the whole issue of a code of conduct fundamental to the setting or the resetting of the island of Tobago in respect of how leaders would behave and how leaders would carry themselves. And quickly, Madam Presiding Officer, before time runs out on me, I will touch briefly on at least 2 other things. And I'll be obliged, Madam Presiding Officer, if when there are 2 minutes to go, you could also remind me. One has to do with education. And in respect of education, one of the things that we will set up in treating with some of the real challenges in education, because, Madam Presiding Officer, I'm sure you are aware that we have consistently been at the bottom in respect of the educational districts in Trinidad and Tobago. And I propose that during my term that we will change that. One of the things that we proposed to do as part of change and innovation is the establishment of a teacher professional center in Tobago. A venue has already been established. And 2 minutes?
It is now 12:30. We normally break for lunch at this time. And so the sitting will be suspended for 1 hour. We will return at 1:30 and resume.